Good evening, this is James, and this is an Un-American Kindle. There's a couple reasons I call it an Un-American Kindle as opposed to an international Kindle. Amazon calls this the International Kindle because they sell it outside of the States. Never mind the fact that to everyone outside the States are international. It's somewhat of a relative term, so I call this the Un-American Kindle because Amazon US is selling this to people outside the US and shipping it overseas, shipping it to people outside the US. And it can only handle English books, or English, or I guess French, minor accents, and so on. But meant mostly for English, can't do Japanese. So I'm calling it the Un-American Kindle. And I'll get into the second reason I call it the Un-American Kindle later. Now, I've been looking for an e-book reader for the longest time, and there used to be something in Japan called the Librier, the Sony Librier, or Librier if you put it into katakana. Sony stopped making it in 2007 and shut down their store for ebooks in early 2009 because the thing just wasn't doing so well. And I have a guess as to part of the reason why. If you ever go into a Japanese bookstore, you'll notice that the shelves are all divided up by publishing house. You won't see books from the same publishing house on the same exact shelf. They divide up the bookstore by publishing house. Somewhat feudal, I guess. F-U-D-A-L as opposed to F-U-T-I-L-E. Somewhat of a feudal system. No way in hell all of these different publishing houses are going to cooperate on an e-book reader. So that's my guess as to why Japan does not currently have, or doesn't seem to have, an e-book reader of its own. And if I'm wrong there, please correct me. If you know of any other similar thin device like this that can be used to purchase and read books, that uses electronic paper, if you know of anything like it, let me know. Because I've looked around Japan, maybe not hard enough, but I haven't found one. And today, part of the reason I'm making this video is so I can talk about the upsides and downsides of these things. Because I do love this. I mean, there's one minor aspect that does seriously piss me off, but mostly I'm in love with this thing. Mostly I need it now. Mostly I read it in places where it's not entirely appropriate to read it, like when I'm walking along the street. Other day I was carrying, what was it, like a bag in one hand and this thing in the other. In one hand. I can hold it in one hand like this. That's the advantage of the smaller size. The Kindle DX in the States, I don't think it would fit in my hand. But I was walking along the street, had a bag in one hand, had this in the other, and I tried to fold it up with one hand, and while I was doing that, I fumbled it. And it tumbled along the sidewalk, along the asphalt, and it got some scratches on the edges. I'm not sure if you can... right here. Right along the edge there. Got the wide-angle lens on this, not the macro lens. Not a macro lens, so I'm not sure if you can see it or not. There's some scratches there, too. So this thing tumbled along the sidewalk, and still works just fine. No moving parts. Something else I like about it. I am addicted to paperback fiction. I used to be going to the book first, I think it was, in Shibuya, because they had a somewhat decent English section. I would get mostly Robert Parker. Sometimes Star Trek books, but more recently mostly Robert Parker. It's an addiction. I'm addicted to the dialogue. I'm addicted to some reminder of what Boston looks like. But I have a couple of floor-to-ceiling bookshelves full of nothing but paperbacks of the kind you would find in the English section of a bookstore here, or that you would find in an airport somewhere. I collect those things like a pack rat, and I can't bring myself to get rid of them. And because of this thing, I don't have to worry about buying more bookshelves. Something else, in my line of work, I work with a lot of very thick, heavy technical books, and some of those books are available for purchase from Kindle. Not all of them, of course, but some of them are. And so having this saves me from having to lug those things around if I want to read one of them in someplace other than my home. So, paperbacks, large technical books, it's a savior in those two situations. There was one other, and I did take notes before I started filming this. Airports, right, and airplanes, and putting things in your bag before you get on an airplane. I carry too much stuff in my carry-on bag when I travel. and usually some of that weight is dedicated to books, either technical books or paperbacks to kill time during the flight. With this thing, I don't need to worry about that extra weight anymore, so my back is very happy that I have this thing now. And that pretty much covers the pluses. I'm getting on a plane next Tuesday, by the way, the 22nd. I'm getting back to Japan on the 27th. I'll be gone only 5 days. I'll only have 3 whole days in the States. That'll be a new record for me. I'm spending Christmas at home with the family for the first time in 13 years now. Part of the reason I let it go for so long is that the last time I visited home, in 1996, I had to shovel out the driveway twice because it snowed so much. So that started to turn me off on going home. But somehow this time I'm kind of looking forward to shoveling the driveway. But anyways, disadvantages. Right. When I log into Amazon.com, because I have one of these, because I've purchased a lot of books for this thing already, the first thing Amazon.com shows me is lists of other books I might be interested in, or related books. And almost all of them are unavailable to customers in your region. On Amazon's page, if you go into your account settings and you try to manage your Kindle, there's a page called Amazon.com/manage your Kindle, I think it's called. In there, you can set the address where you reside, and that determines your region. And unless you're in the right region, you can't download the books you want. So for some reason, these electronic books that they keep putting in my face are available in the States, but they aren't available in Japan. Kind of humiliating that they would shove that in my face. Yeah, that does cheese me off. Because I'm reading I used to read a lot of Star Trek paperbacks until I started running out of shelf space and going through them too quickly. And a lot of them are in series that, and not just Star Trek, but I'm sure there's other series that have the same problem, where some of the books in the series are available in Japan, but others are not. Now, in Manage Your Kindle, there's a place, like I said, where you set your address, and that determines your region. I don't know how often you can change that. I don't know if it's like a DVD player where you can change it to region 1, and then to region 2, only a certain number of times. So one thing I'm going to do next week, I've bought a bunch of books already, and I haven't seen the $2 surcharge per book, and I'll try to mention that again later. But because I'm downloading within the region where I live, within my home region, I'm guessing that the reason I'm not getting charged is because I'm downloading within my home region, where I live. Now, if I were to go to the States with this thing still set for Japan, then I'm guessing that I would get charged $2 per book. So next week, when I go to the States, I'm going to leave it set for Japan, and while I'm in Japan, I'm going to try to download a book. And then I'm going to change my region to my Jikka, the home where I was raised, the address. See if I can download a book then, one that I wouldn't normally be able to download from Japan. And leaving it set in the US, I'm going to take it back to Japan. Try buying a book then to see if I get charged then. Fat Blue Man ran into some confusion on that point. John of Fat Blue Man. He was probably the first J vlogger to get a Kindle. And it was partially based on his feedback that I felt confident in getting one of these things. But he mentioned getting charged $2 per book when he first made his video, and he recently mentioned on Twitter, I think it was, that he got a refund. So I'm guessing that Amazon mistakenly charged him $2 per book for roaming outside of Canada or outside of the States, when he's actually a resident here, when he actually had his Kindle set for Japan from the beginning. And I'm guessing, because I bought mine later, I didn't run into that $2 surcharge bug, or whatever you call it. So, next week I'll find out what that $2 surcharge per book is all about. And I'm coming up on 10 minutes here, so if you're in Japan and you commute on the subways, you need one of these things to maintain your sanity. You'll never be bored in a jam-packed train again. So, once again, if you're in a crowded city, if you're in Tokyo, you probably need one of these things. Catch you later.